He's a knucklehead. Stupid guy.
President Donald Trump continues to attack Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, whom he nominated for the role in 2017.
We have a moron at the head of the Fed. He's a moron.
The insults have persisted in recent weeks as Trump pushes the U.S. central bank to set its benchmark interest rate at 1%. But Trump should be careful what he wishes for, says Annex Wealth Management's chief economist Brian Jacobson, as a 1% rate would signal an economy in serious trouble.
The economy would have to be in dire straits in order to justify 1% rates. At the Federal Reserve Board, we know that John Williams has talked about how there is a risk that in the future, we might get back to that 0% lower bound. That would probably require a deep recession, some sort of financial catastrophe, or deflation. And I don't think that we have any of those scenarios on the horizon.
A 1% rate would also lower government borrowing costs, allowing the administration to finance the high and rising deficits expected from Trump's spending and tax cut bill. The so-called Fed funds rate currently stands between 4.25 and 4.5%. Only banks borrow overnight at that rate, but it is a benchmark for other credit, influencing everything from corporate debt to home mortgages, consumer credit cards, and treasury yields. Global trading across an array of markets ultimately determines those other rates. Supply and demand are critical. Intangibles like trust in a country's institutions also matter. When Trump's threats to fire Powell intensified in April, yields rose and the president backed off, a sign that global markets have an important voice in central bank independence, something Jacobson thinks is crucial.
There is a long precedent of the importance of independent central banks when it comes to policy making, because otherwise the risk is that you get to a situation where inflation once again runs too hot and it really can then spin out of control. So I agree that Fed independence is really important and does need to be defended.
Also in agreement is JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, who said in response to Trump's ramped-up attacks on Powell that, quote, playing around with the Fed can often have adverse consequences, absolutely opposite of what you might be hoping for. Trump recently sent Powell a handwritten note with a list of central bank rates and penciled in where he thought the Fed policy rate should be, near the bottom. U.S. central bank policymakers say it would be risky to cut rates until it is clear that Trump's new tariffs, many already imposed and more still to come, aren't going to stoke inflation. Still, some, including Jacobson, think the Fed should start lowering them.
If we do see an increase in inflation due to tariffs, then they will feel justified in staying on pause. The only thing is that I'm not sure that we're going to see as much inflation as fast as what the Fed fears. Today's CPI numbers really did show some inflationary effects from tariffs, but not a lot or anything that I think that the Fed would justify a continued pause.
U.S. inflation increased by the most in 5 months, according to the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index report for June, suggesting Trump's tariffs were starting to have an impact on prices Americans pay for everyday goods.